There's a lot going on between the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump and the start of the RNC. Joining us now with how all of this could affect the race is political analyst Wendy Patrick. Thanks for being with us. You got to start out just looking back to Saturday, a bad day for America. Anytime violence enters our political spaces, it's a bad day. And we lost a father, a firefighter, Corey Comparatori, a 50-year-old. Two other people were hurt. It just puts a pall over everything. But we have to look at the race. We have to go on that. President Trump has this iconic photo of him, blood coming down his face, his fist up. A lot of people think that the imagery and his recovery out of this can give him a boost that he's just going to run away with this race now.
You know, we would never have predicted, given what we were discussing last week, which was Biden's health, that we would now be here. I mean, Donald Trump was one rally away from the convention, and we wouldn't have had, the Republicans wouldn't have had a candidate to nominate had he not turned his head an inch to the left. You talk about divine intervention taking place. One thing that came out of that both President Biden and former President Trump are really seizing upon is taking this moment to appreciate what you just said, that political violence has no place in a campaign. We decide campaigns with ballots, not bullets, and that's what everybody is focusing on. It really has caused this convention to start out so differently than any convention in our lifetimes. I mean, when was the last time? I'm, of course, remembering in middle school hearing about President Reagan being shot. And remember, that was not political motivation, which is another big question they're having here is, you know, why did it happen?
We have a young man whose profile is so similar to other young men who have done mass shootings in this country. It's an open carry state. Just a lot of questions there that we have no answers to yet. But whatever the motivation, the idea that we could cool down the rhetoric sounds like a good one for everyone. One thing coming out of this that I've heard some talk of, some people thinking that this actually could hurt Biden's campaign in other ways, in that for Democrats, it takes the attention off of pushing Biden out.
That's right. We have seen a grand pause, as we say in the music business, between what all the Democrats were talking about last week, whatever side of the aisle they were on. Remember, every day there were even more cries, sometimes very vocally, and of course, even to his face last week. And now we're not talking about any of that anymore. So you wonder whether or not when that conversation starts again, which I believe it will, they'll be even closer to the convention, and they'll have even less time to make a decision if they want to substitute him. Now, I happen to think that is not going to happen. It was never going to happen. President Biden has dug in his heels and said, definitely it won't. But former President Trump keeps getting breaks. I mean, we've got the break from the case today in the Mar-a-Lago. We have the immunity decision from last week. So as that race widens, you might think anybody that wants that substitution to take place would need to reinvent that conversation now, because it's a different conversation given Saturday.
Very much so. There's supposed to be another presidential debate in September. If Joe Biden stays in the race, do you see that happening?
Yes. I almost think that if he stays in the race, there's not a way to get out of it. If the landscape were different, perhaps, but remember that he wants to do that second debate. And the Democrats that called for potentially switching the ticket we're glad the first debate occurred as early as it did, because that gave that space between the June debate and now that's all off the table because we've paused that. What I'm waiting to see is when this convention is over, how quickly, not if, how quickly that conversation about Joe Biden reinvents itself. Because remember, he's continuing to do public events and interviews between now and then.
Yeah, his conversations, his interviews he's had, in his Oval Office address, the content of that has been well met. People feel he's risen to the occasion with the content, but it's done nothing to slow the questions about whether he's up to the task of 4 more years and this campaign.
That's right. He's reading off a teleprompter, and you know he's doing a good job. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as the George Stephanopoulos interview. It's not the same thing as the NATO interview. It's a Rorschach test. I mean, the Republicans think something different than the Democrats. It's the same interview. But the one thing I think that he really has to live down is the statement about working 6 hours a day, remember, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and the 8 p.m. bedtime. I think that's problematic for everyone, even his supporters.
The narrative is going to be very difficult for him to overcome. I guess what we can say is, we're out of time for now. I appreciate you being here. We'll see you again at 6, is that, I guess, what's the next unknown out there? Because it has been a wild ride so far. Wendy Patrick, thanks for your time, as always.
Thank you.